Welcome to the Pretty Powerful Podcast, where powerful women are interviewed every week to share real inspiring stories and incredible insight to help women or anyone break the barriers, be a part of innovation, shatter the glass ceiling, and dominate to the top of their sport, industry, or life's mission. Join us as we celebrate exceptional women and step into our power. And now, here's your host, Angela Gennari.
Hello, and thank you for joining us for another episode of the Pretty Powerful Podcast. My name is Angela Gennari, and today I'm here with Nicole Langevin. Hi, Nicole.
Hello, thanks for having me.
Absolutely my pleasure. So, Nicole Langevin is one of North America's most notable leaders in the gymnastics industry. She speaks at regional and national conventions in the US, Canada, and is a top-rated judge, Olympic choreographer, and podcast host who is also active in the Special Olympics community. Very cool. How exciting is this?
Not quite an elevator pitch.
Well, tell me what piqued your interest in gymnastics. How long have you been involved with gymnastics?
Since I destroyed the furniture and flipped off the couch about 4 or 5 years old, and my mom found the closest gym and said, "Take her, please."
I love that. So I did gymnastics when I was little, but I quickly realized that I was getting too tall for it because I feel like I just kept hitting my head on everything. So I kind of sprouted up really quickly when I was a kid. So
That's
yeah.
definitely hard in our sport. It doesn't ultimately, it really doesn't matter about, body type or composition. It's, how strong and coordinated are you in relation to that.
Yeah.
But I will say it's the rate of growth is definitely hard. I mean, some of the world's best gymnasts in the world have had
Yeah.
to relearn how to just swing on bars, even at their highest level when they had like a 2-inch growth spurt.
Oh,
So,
wow.
well, it's
Yeah.
all timing. So
Yeah.
make it difficult.
So when you were younger, and you started getting into gymnastics, did you have like a particular part of gymnastics that you were most involved with? Like
So there's
parallel.
different types of gymnastics. There's artistic gymnastics, which I think probably most of the listeners think of when they hear gymnastics. That's what Simone Biles does. It's the most popular
Oh,
gymnastics. And then there's rhythmic gymnastics where they use the ribbon and the hoops and the ball and all that stuff. Then there's also, I should know this better, but some of them are like newer versions of things that have existed. So there's trampoline and tumbling now. There's group gymnastics and
huh.
partner acro, and yeah, I'm not doing it justice, but it's a lot under the umbrella of gymnastics these days. So, but I personally work in the world of artistic gymnastics, which is vault, bars, beam, and floor.
Okay, very cool. And that's what I'm most familiar with too. So we, for a while we were doing security for University of Georgia, and gymnastics was actually their biggest sellout sport.
Oh, that's huge.
Yeah. So, I mean, it was crazy because, UGA has this, everybody knows it as a football school, this huge football, but gymnastics every time was a sellout. And it was just extraordinary to watch the athleticism. I mean, just the core and the power, and just, it was an amazing sport to watch.
Yeah, that is a dynasty. And I've had the head coach, Suzanne Jocelyn, who was, I don't know what year you were working with them, but
Yeah.
she was the powerhouse coach, where
Mm.
that's unbeatable forever. I've had her on my show, and she was probably one of my most interesting guests. And then two of the guests who have been on have also now just taken over the co-head coach positions of Georgia. So
Very
much
cool.
going on lately. Yeah.
Yeah. So we were there 2019 through 2023.
Oh, okay. So it's Courtney Coupettes Carter.
Yeah, but yeah, just an outstanding team, and just the coordination and the strength. That's what was like most evident to me, is the strength and the power.
Yeah. And the
But
funny thing is, a lot of those athletes, what they're doing that you're seeing now is actually watered down versions of what they are capable of.
really,
Yeah.
wow, that's really crazy, because these people are athletes, like the truest definition. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So why do you think they're watering it down? Is it just injury?
Uh, no, a lot of it is just based on what the rules are. So
Mm,
any of the gymnasts at these top tier NCAA teams, Alabama, Utah, Georgia,
hmm
now Cal, UCLA, There are more, but a lot of them actually already competed at the elite level, which is where you select the Olympic team from. So
Uh-huh.
something like 4% of all gymnasts will ever even reach that level, never mind be put on a national team or a world team or Olympic team. So they're doing that and then going to college, and they're able to actually back down a little bit on the difficulty of what they were doing. And that's why they're so consistent, is because
Wow.
yeah, they truly are masters of what they're doing.
Wow, that's really fascinating. So what are the, you said 4% make it to the level of like just being able to compete at that level. So what does that kind of commitment look like?
Um, it's very different now than it was, yeah, I'd say, back in the 90s.
Yeah.
Uh, it used to be very much this mentality of, just get there as fast and hard as you can. And so these gymnasts were being pushed at a very, very young age as soon as they showed talent to get to that top level. And so it was almost like people just believed you can't go to school if you're going to do that. You got to be homeschooled, you got to do
Wow.
practices a day. And then we're talking about 10-year-olds.
Wow. That's
Um,
crazy.
yeah, and the Olympic age, the minimum Olympic age used to be 14. So
Hmm.
for some reason, coaches, and a lot of times it comes down to ego with coaches, I'm just going to be real, uh,
Hmm.
they would hear that 14 as the minimum age as, well, then that's the age that they have to get them to that level at. So they'd push so hard, and a lot of the kids wouldn't make it. It's too much on a young body and a young brain and emotionally and everything. Um, and then they moved the age to 16, and you could
Oh,
kind of
wow.
see a little bit of pulling back on, let's actually worry about longevity and, creating humans that can function happily and successfully in the world
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
to look good. And now, people like Chelsea Memel and Simone Biles, and
Hmm.
they're all showing you can do, and um, I mean, Oksana Chusovitina, who is late 40s at this point, doing gymnastics at a high level and succeeding. So now the story's really changed. It is not
Yeah.
so much about you can't have anything else but this. There's a lot more balance, a lot more focus on athlete wellness. Even
Mm.
the National Team Training Center has vastly changed from this closed door, behind closed doors thing. And now they're actually incorporating nutritionists and injury prevention and, the things that you probably should have for the highest level athletes in the world.
Well, and those are the things that they have for other athletes,
Yeah.
for football teams and basketball teams. So it makes sense that they would incorporate. I mean, because it is just so hard on your body, and your body is your what you do to create the sport, the environment. I mean, it's not like you're a race car driver and it's all depending on the car and the driver. I mean, this is all you, right? So you have to keep your body in tip top shape, and that includes nutrition, not just skills, not just skill set, but nutrition and constantly recuperating and making sure that your body is in recovery
Mhm.
proper amount versus not just get out there and perfect your skills.
Mhm.
So that's fascinating. So I remember one of the games or one of the meets at Georgia, they had there was an Olympic athlete. Was it Simone Biles? But one of the Olympic athletes came, and when she was still competing in the SEC, and it was insane because she had her own security team, like legit security team. And
There's more now than there ever was. Going from Jade Carey, Sunisa Lee, they're just Jordan Childs.
mm,
Simone does not do NCAA, but these athletes that, yeah, literally Grace McCallum, they go to the Olympics and then they're right there competing in college, and it's like it's
yeah.
incredible.
Yeah, well, and I own a security company, and so we provide security, and we had to interact and make sure that their security team um was meshing with ours, and so that
Right.
we weren't getting in each other's way. So it was just fascinating. But so you took your gymnastics career and then you pivoted into starting a business.
Mhm.
So how did have being an athlete for so long, how did that help you when you were starting your business? And tell me about your businesses.
So I remember being in fifth grade.
Yeah.
And I remember my teacher, I wasn't paying attention, or I was doing a project. I just wasn't really, putting much effort or care into it. And she said, what are you going to do when these grades follow you and with your career and this and that? And I said, well, I'm doing gymnastics.
Yeah.
I said, what if you get hurt? And I remember looking at her and I was like, I didn't necessarily mean that I was always going to be a gymnast. I was just going to do gymnastics. Like I had no idea what that meant. And at the time, the only thing I ever knew about was people doing gymnastics or coaching gymnastics.
Uh-huh.
But there was just this thing. And I think it's very similar. I don't want to compare myself to superstars, but like these actors who are just like, I knew as a young kid, I'm
Right.
going to be on Broadway. I'm going to, and it's like this obsession and this really like no questions asked non-negotiable. uh,
Yeah.
I looked at her and I was like, I'm doing gymnastics. And she said, what if you get hurt? And I said, still doing gymnastics. So I went into coaching as soon as I was done
Uh-huh.
and learned a lot there. And then I moved out to California where I was going to film school. I still found a gym to coach gymnastics at. It was supposed to just be part-time. And I was trying to develop my choreography skills in and outside of gymnastics. And fast forward a few years, I ended up taking over the whole junior Olympic program there. So really just dug in and understood the ins and outs of developing athletes, dealing with parents, coming up with different systems, what works, what doesn't, just from the business standpoint as well. And then just had this real itching sensation that I needed to get out of those four walls, not because there was anything wrong with it. And I loved the athletes that I worked with dearly. It was very heartbreaking to walk away, but there was just this pull of like, okay, you did that.
Yeah.
Now there's other people to reach. There's other places to step into. And so I wanted to be able to impact outside of those four walls. And the first way I was able to do that was with choreography. The athletes that I was coaching were doing very well, but they were definitely noted for their choreography and performance. So I was having a lot of gyms asking me to come in and work on that aspect with their athletes. And then I was like, well, I should probably put a name to this. So I put a name to it and just made that like the second, I don't want to say second part of my job, but kind of moonlighting all
Mm-hmm.
over doing this choreography thing. And then it was just a series of saying yes. I remember I went into a gym in Pennsylvania. I did choreography. There was an athlete on beam, which was one of the strongest areas that I excel in coaching wise. And I gave some advice to the coach. It was really good. And they said, well, do you do clinics on beam? And at that time, that wasn't a phrase that I had heard of. That wasn't a role that I knew that people had.
Yeah.
I'm very much like I talk the talk and then I figure out how to walk later. So
Yeah. I love that.
I've got a series of 7 tricks I can do. And then I got on the plane. I was like, oh God, I better come up with these.
Uh-huh.
Um, and then I just started building that. So I would go into gyms and do clinics as well as choreography. And then it turned into, okay, I'm really liking this. I want to
Yeah.
get more people. And so I was able to break into the lecture circuit, which is essentially for USA, USA Gymnastics splits up the country into 8 regions.
Uh-huh.
Every region has its educational conference every year. It's like a big convention, convention center type deal. And they have speakers on different tracks throughout the day. So I was able to get myself into those regional ones and then the national ones. And then I started getting invited to speak in Canada. And so it just kind of a lot of saying yes and then figuring it out type stuff. And then during all of that, it was like, well, I should probably judge too.
Mm-hmm.
When I think especially with a sport, any athlete that excels at the highest level of their sport usually eats, sleeps, and breathes it.
Yeah.
And even I took my son to an archery lesson and
Okay.
I was really into science. And so he was pretty good at it. And the guy was talking to him about technique or something. And I looked at my son and I said, Bon, it's like, it's physics. That's what you've been learning about. And his eyes lit up. And the guy said, you know what? The people that are really good at archery are constantly mapping out equations and angles and this and that. And it just reminded me of that. You don't just do a sport, you encompass all of it. You want to know the history of it, the science behind it.
Yeah.
That's kind of, I think, been my whole thing is I don't accept not understanding an aspect of my sport. And I don't claim to say I understand every aspect of it or that I'm an expert in every aspect of it, but that's what I'm trying to do every day. If there's
Yeah.
something want to know everything about it. I want to be able to, help people in any realm of the sport possible, whether it's mental, physical, emotional, technical,
Mm-hmm. Well, and
So
that's amazing because I mean, honestly, it just gives you a more well-rounded approach and you're better at problem solving if you really truly understand the depth. It's one thing to know a little bit about everything, but you can't problem solve that way. You can only, you problem solve by going deep. And so by doing what you're doing as far as really diving deep into the subject matter, whether it's the nutrition or the history, the dynamics, the science behind it, that's really what's giving you that ability to do so much. And that's why you keep getting all these opportunities because you're an expert in the field. That's amazing.
thank you. So the business I have is, well, we're rebranding a little bit, but it started out as Precision Choreography,
Okay.
which was Nicole choreographing floor routines. That's all it was.
Yes.
And it turned into, okay, we're doing clinics and now we're doing training camps and we're doing mastermind courses and we're doing coaches education and staff training, so many things. Uh, but the company started as Precision Choreography, and that's kind of what it's known for. But it's like so much more than that.
That's awesome.
The judging aspect of it as well. So we are rebranding it into Precision Gymnastics Services so that
Mm,
we don't feel so pigeonholed. But
mm,
heart and soul of it all, that was the first passion, was trying to understand, what really makes an artist, what makes something beautiful to watch.
mm-hmm. I love that. So when you're learning choreography, where do you go to learn it? And is it specific to gymnastics or can you learn that choreography in other places and then bring it into gymnastics?
Yeah, the idea is that, gymnastics has a bad rep for not being very artistic. And some of it is just because, especially at those highest levels, these girls are doing 4 tumbling passes,
Yeah.
couple leap passes. Like, they're doing so much that there's so little time to breathe and dance, but it is absolutely possible. And but the kind of, I don't know, I guess the general stereotype is that gymnasts are kind of very stiff and they just pose, pose, pose. And so it's nice to try to give them the exposure to things outside of their sport, not what they see on TV and go, oh, I guess that's what a floor routine looks like. But
Hmm.
younger age, exposing them to different types of movements so that they can evolve as artists as well as athletes at the same time. So I talk to coaches a lot about the fact that, we wait until they're about 11, 10, 11, 12 to start talking about artistry, because that's typically the level where they start having the opportunity to have their own choreography.
Mm.
Till then, the federation just goes, here are the routines that everybody has to learn. So
Hmm.
doesn't matter what state you're in. If you're in a level 4, you have the same music and the same choreography as every other level 4 in the country. And those routines are, they're fine. They're not breathtaking or
Right,
anything.
right,
They're
right.
very precise. So a lot of coaches will just kind of wait on the artistry thing. And then these girls are 10, 11, 12 years old. And now they're asking them they're the most self-conscious part of their entire lives.
Yeah, yeah,
Right?
seriously.
This is when they start looking sideways in the mirror. This is
Hmm.
when they start worrying about if they look cool or not. And is this what I'm supposed to be doing? And is this what everybody else is doing? And that's where we're going to ask them to start doing something vulnerable, like performing and expressing themselves, like
Yeah.
out the window. So I just feel really passionate. You got to start when they're little. They don't care. Weird is fun. Silly is
Yeah.
great. And then you can kind of hone it by the time that they're actually needing to really use it.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Absolutely. So when you're starting your business, when you're coming from, sports, where you've put a sport where you've put so much passion and so much drive into that, was it hard to figure out how to put the pieces of the business together, or did you have somebody helping out with that, or did you study that?
That's something I always look back. I'm like, man, I wish, I go on a lot of instincts. I'm from
Hmm.
an entrepreneurial family, but no, I did not get a business degree. I wish I did. That's probably my biggest regret, because so much was based on passion and determination. And the business model is still evolving all the time. But the
Yeah.
one thing that I never let go of was, this is the thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
As many pivots had to happen along the way, but there's no blueprint for exactly how to do something that isn't already out there. And that's the
Mhm.
thing too, in our sport,